Folks, good afternoon. I'm Leesa Lambert. I am a co-owner of the Little Book Room, a specialist children's bookshop here in Melbourne, and it is my great pleasure to introduce you to the one and only Freya Blackwood, who has won just about every award you can think of and is gracing us with her presence. In terms of awards, can we please talk about the Kate Greenaway Award, the most prestigious award for illustration in the United Kingdom? How was that to win? Because we were really excited in our shop.
You were really excited.
We were over the moon. We were so proud. We almost took it to the streets.
It was a few years ago now. I've sort of gradually come to terms with it.
The book that won was Harry and Hopper.
Yeah. It was a complete shock. And also I think, because I went to London to accept the award because I happened to be overseas at the time. And I still can't quite believe it, and I'm sure they've made a mistake. Or, I don't know. And the book, when they showed images of the book up on the screen next to Oliver Jeffers' book and whoever else it was, and mine was sort of messy and grey. And theirs were all so exciting, but yeah, I was completely blown away. Yeah.
Past winners are Raymond Briggs, Quentin Blake. What fine company.
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary. I'm sure they made a mistake.
Harry and Hopper is a beautifully honest book. The text is so gorgeous, of course.
Yeah,
it must
was
have
lovely
been
to read when I first read it. Yeah.
And so relatable. You're a dog lover, of course.
Yes. We've had a conversation about how we both love dogs. And books. And
dogs are the best. I wanted to know if there are books in just about if there are dogs in every one of your books. Almost.
Perhaps there almost are.
Perhaps not
that one.
From Snowy River?
No, but I generally... I always like dogs. But I think it's because my first book was with John Heffernan, and he's got a love of dogs. So a lot of his books had dogs, and I'd put a dog into Two Summers, and I hadn't had a pet dog for a long time. So I just you put one into every of my books, and finally I got myself a dog, which made it into The Runaway Hug. I think I'll show you. I had some fabulous photos of my dog in bed, in my daughter's bed, and my daughter reading Goodnight Moon to the dog. But I think you might be able to find that maybe on my blog. You might be able to see that image. I don't have it in this one. It's the terrible suitcase that the dog's in.
The terrible suitcase. I do recommend very heartily that you pop over to Freya's blog, because it gives a really wonderful insight into Freya's practice, I suppose.
Yeah, I was trying to include lots of process stuff in it. I haven't got to that yet, but it's very hard to update regularly, sadly. I'm sure everyone starts a blog and puts 4 posts and then that's it, which is what's happened so far.
One of the fascinating things that I came across was the story of the mural that you produced for the Orange Public Hospital.
Yes.
Amazing and huge. And how confronting was it to all of a sudden have to draw something man-size? Yeah,
it was difficult. I mean, it's not that big. It's probably the length of this room, so the width of this room in length, and about 6 foot, 7 foot high, or a little bit bigger. So it's not huge, and it was in panels, so it was, I could work on it in my studio, and it was an enormous amount of fun, and I worked in exactly the same way as I would for a book. I just drew the outline and basically coloured it in with acrylic paints on a big scale, and I didn't have a very long time frame to do the work. So I didn't worry about it or agonise over anything. And in the end, I was really proud of it. It was a really lovely image of a procession of animals and children walking from left to right. And there's an elephant riding a bicycle and a crocodile walking on its hands. and a tiger with the sleeping child on it, and just things like that. And they're walking towards the treatment room, and the treatment room in a hospital, in a children's ward, is a really miserable place. And they wanted something to liven it up and something for children to be able to look at while they were having injections and blood taken and stuff like that. We've got children in the audience, I just realised, sorry.
And if there's one thing that's going to cheer you up, it is a crocodile doing a handstand.
Yeah, well, I had another drawing for in there, which was lots of fun. It was them all when they got to the beach, when they were all swimming, and, it was good. Yeah. But I was really proud of the fact that I'd done this mural for our hospital, and I looked up one of my friends who I lived with in Sydney, and she'd just done the massive mobile in the Melbourne Children's Hospital, the one that spans like 7 stories.
Amazing.
So no, mine
next
is
time.
Not that exciting.
There's still time, Freya. There's still time.
Yes. Anyway, books.
Do you have a favourite?
I think I don't really have a favourite, but the one I am constantly proud of is Amy and Louie. And it's because when I first read the story, it just felt like it was written especially for me. I'd had my best friend had moved to Adelaide from Orange, and it must have been I know that it affected me at the time, but I didn't realise how much I'd been affected by it. And I read this story and just instantly knew I had to do it. And I did agonise over that book. I worked really hard to get it as perfect as I could, and I hadn't had a daughter by that stage, so I had all the time in the world. So it's close to being
and
my
yes,
favourite. Yes.
And how does that work? How does managing a creative career and a family?
I found... there's that book, Amy and Louie, that has lots of detail, and then there's Harry and Hopper, which I did working 1 day a week when my daughter went to daycare, and any nights I could manage, and I had to get it done in 4 months or something. So it's really, really rapid working, and you can tell the difference in the style. But it won the Kate Greenaway Medal. And the other, it's funny, isn't it? The things that you think, oh my goodness, I really rushed that. I've done such a terrible job. It's going to be the worst book in the world and it's never going to sell anything. And then it does really well. And then you think, I worked so hard on this book and it's the best I've ever done. And it doesn't, it just sort of peters out and it doesn't... You find it doesn't sell anymore at all. And then you're offered the stock at a reduced price.
They should come to me. This book, The Runaway Hug, I actually have trouble reading because it just tears me up. I just get teary. It just is just so
Did you
beautiful.
Not get any hugs when you were little?
I was living at Hug Central, and I think that's why it brings me such great joy to read this book. How did it feel to have this manuscript arrive from Nick Bland?
You'll probably notice I don't normally take stories that are, feel-good stories. I don't, for some reason, and I don't really know why it is. I always take the stuff that's more challenging and never sells well. But this one was different, but I knew that it was very unique. It's a story about hugging, but it's a story about one that runs away, and about sharing a hug and the one hug being passed on. And I just thought it was a lovely concept, and it was beautifully written, and it was one that I allowed into my eclectic collection of books, and I think to date it's been the most fun to illustrate, and it's been the most satisfying, and it's done well because it's
I think it's really
made me realise that maybe I should, if I want to survive and eat, I probably need to do more feel-good books. Yes.
I think it really has been one of the most successful children's book council winners. So
oh yes, sometimes they don't quite correlate, do they? But the winners and
and this book just speaks to people so immediately, and they just pick it up and can't put it down. It's a bookseller's dream.
Well, it's the only one that my daughter has liked of my books. So, and she's only read it or allowed me to read it to her a few times, but that's more than any of the others.
How does it feel to her to be living with such a harsh critic?
Oh look, she's lovely. No, and she's got her own tastes. That's all. She likes dinosaurs, and I haven't done a dinosaur book. And she likes tigers, and I haven't done a tiger book. And I think maybe because she's used to seeing what I do, it's just not interesting to her. But that's okay. I still aim to one day do a book that she likes. But that might be the closest I ever get.
Now, you have a studio in your home?
Yes, I have a studio out in my backyard. And it's a really nice big space with light, and it's a lovely place to be.
A haven.
And I've gone from feeling quite isolated because I don't actually see anyone or talk to anyone most days, but I really like it. So this is really quite confronting. I'm
because
just going to close my eyes.
Yeah, we might take some questions if you want to get your heads into it just in a moment, because I'm quite curious, and I hope I just haven't lost this thought.
Yes.
No, I've lost it. You've got it though. So over to you.
What was that?
Thank you.
Hello, I just wanted to know. So when you're drawing, when you're drawing for a book,
yes.
So do you just draw on like a piece of paper, and how does it come into a book?
Yeah, good question. I should have asked that.
So I still work in all traditional mediums. I just start drawing on cartridge paper, and actually I generally start by writing notes first, not drawing, because I find drawing, I know I'm an illustrator, but I actually find drawing quite difficult, and I have to feel like I'm in the right place to draw, so it takes me a while to get ready. So I'll often write lots of notes on each. I'll split the text up on pages and decide which page the text is going to go on which page, and then I'll write lots of notes and gradually work out how I want the book to look. And I mean, I don't know whether other illustrators see things as soon as they read it, but I don't always see what a book's going to look like or what characters are going to look like. I have to do quite a lot of brainstorming. So I just work on paper at a desk, and I'll go through quite a few different phases though. So I'll do very small sketches to start with, and then work them up much bigger, and then once that's all working, I'll do final ones. But it's just like any creative process, that you're sort of drafting stuff up and gradually building it.
And on that point, Freya, when you are working with an author, do they send their own brainstorming notes with you, or do you just get this story?
No, and I think that's
it?
often where people are quite confused, because some authors and illustrators do work closely together, but I've got a really good relationship with. I love working with editors or publishers, and I have one editor that I've worked with a lot. And we've developed a really good working relationship. So that's the person I like to bounce ideas off. And that isn't to say that I don't communicate with the authors. Libby Gleeson, for instance, I know very well. So if I've got questions, I will talk to her about them. But Nick Bland, who wrote The Runaway Hug, I didn't meet him until the CBCA Awards in Adelaide. And he, when I asked if I could write to him and say how much I really liked the story, Scholastic wouldn't give me his email address. So we didn't communicate at all. And I'm just glad that, I think he likes it.
I think he does.
Yeah, but you just don't know. And he ended up, he wouldn't have known what to expect. And Libby Gleeson's the same. She says that she quite likes just handing over a text and seeing what I come up with, or what other. I mean, she's worked with Armand Grader, so she's really excited about what you come up with, which gives me. I feel like I'm trusted, and I guess it helps our relationship. Yeah,
that's
wonderful.
wonderful.
And it's a pretty nice. I mean, I'd always wanted to be Armand Grader actually and work with Libby Gleeson, and then I got the book Amy and Louie, and I've got another book that I'm doing with Libby soon, and one to come out in September, and I've started another one now. So hopefully it'll be one of those relationships that other people are jealous of. I'm kidding.
Absolutely. And tell us a little bit about Banjo and Ruby Red.
Yeah, so in September I have a book called Banjo and Ruby Red that's coming out, and it's lovely. It's about a farm dog called Banjo, who dog lover here. A farm dog who's the best chook dog these people have ever had, and they just say, "Go, Banjo, go!" And Banjo starts barking, and all the chickens on cue go straight into their chicken coop and onto their perches, except Ruby Red. And Ruby Red just doesn't like being bossed around. And she'll do it in her own time. But one night when he's getting all the chooks in, Ruby Red can't be found. And it's that sort of dun 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 moment when you think something's gone wrong. And Banjo goes off and looks for her, and he looks through the farmyard and through the grass, and finally he finds her under the wool shed, and she's sick and dying, and he thinks that she's dead. But he picks her up and he takes her back to his kennel, and he looks after her for 2 or 3 days. And he sort of puts his body around her and keeps her warm. And he nurses her back. I know, it's lovely. Well, and of course I thought, oh, she's just going to die. But she doesn't. He nurses her back to health. And it changes their relationship, the dog-chicken relationship, so that they're now, they have a happy regard for each other.
Oh, my goodness. It's just so beautiful.
It's a nice book. And it's positive and happy, which is what I'm doing from now on.
love.
Yeah.
Now, do any of the children in the audience have a question for Freya?
Oh, yes.
There's a lovely girl with a spotty T-shirt right down the front, so there is.
I think that's you. Yeah.
Amy.
She's Amy.
When you were small, did anything inspire you to drawing?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
When you were small, did anything inspire you to drawing?
Oh, when I was young, apparently I used to draw all the time, from when I was really little. And my mum is a painter as well. And her father was also a painter. So he was a painter during the Cubist and Surrealist periods. And he encouraged my mum to draw and paint, and she in turn encouraged me to draw and paint. So that was a good question. And yes, I've loved drawing ever since I was little. Yes. Nice question.
Whose work inspires you now?
I love Joel Stewart's work.
Oh, so do I.
I love Joel Stewart. I wrote to him once and I said, I really love your work. Oh, here's something of mine. And he went, keep it up.
And then you won the Kate Greenaway Medal, so just saying.
Oh, no, I mean, his stuff's fantastic. It's really, really good. And we were talking about Eva Eriksson, a Swedish illustrator, who I love her people. And go out and look her up if you're interested in fantastic Swedish illustrators. She's really, really good. And her human characters, they're just lovely, and they're quite fluid and crazy. And she's done this wonderful book called All the Dear Little Dead Things, or All the Dear Little animals or something, All the Dear Little Animals, about a group of kids who decide one afternoon that they're going to bury animals, dead ones. And that sort of thing would just never get published in Australia. But it's so good. And one of there's the little girl who's quite happy to hold the dead animal and bury it, and then there's the little boy who's very good at writing poetry, so he does all the eulogies. And by the end of the day, after all this practice, he manages to touch the yucky dead animal and bury it, and she says a poem. And it's really lovely. Other people I love, I've always loved Lisbeth Swerger's work. She's an Austrian illustrator, and she's quite beautiful ink and watercolour work, but it's quite quirky.
There's her beautiful edition of The Wizard of Oz is just
and Alice
so
in Wonderland
refreshing.
she's done as well. Yeah. And I love Armand Grader's work. Yeah, as sort of dark and charcoal. Yeah, it's great.
Marvellous.
Yes, he's been one of my idols for a while.
Understandably
Yes.
so. Some more questions, folks?
How long does it normally take to write a book?
Well, I illustrate them. If I was writing one, it would take me about 10 years. But to illustrate one, I normally say about 6 months. Especially now with school holidays. It's really hard to get stuff done in the school holidays. So about 6 months, it's quite a long time. And it takes me quite a long time to get my head around it. So to decide what it's going to all look like. It takes me about 2 or 3 months just to sort of get my head around a text. I don't know whether other people are as slow as me. I don't really want to ask.
Careful.
Yeah,
Not slow.
it's best I'd lose confidence. That was a good question. Has anyone else got any questions for me?
What do you mean on these pieces of paper by hobbits?
Oh, well, I actually didn't write that. I was wondering what they meant too. But I think that before I was an illustrator, at university I got interested in film work. And sorry, that's probably the only reason you're here. I just realised, sorry. No. I got interested in film work, and I moved to New Zealand to work on the 3 Lord of the Rings films. So while there, I learned how to apply prosthetic makeups. So I painted enormous numbers of hobbit feet, and I learned how to stick them on, and I flicked alcohol in Sean Astin's eye once. That was a horrible experience. And and so I worked on the 3 Lord of the Rings films, but in a much different capacity than I do now. I was a prosthetic effects technician.
Wow.
It was a wonderful experience, but it was a lot of hard work, and I just didn't feel like it was quite me. So from there, I had the opportunity to find something I really wanted to do. And there were some amazing illustrators that worked on The Lord of the Rings. There was John Howe and Alan Lee. So I ended up getting to know Alan Lee quite well, and he gave me some advice and helped me work out what I could do. So that's what the Hobbit thing is all about.
Wow.
I painted lots of them.
Any more questions?
We've got one up the front here.
I just wanted to ask you, my dream would be to do what you do, and
It's a good job.
I've always
Yeah.
wanted to, and I just wanted to ask you, I have ideas and whatnot, but how do you break into publishing, and have you got any tips for me or anything?
Look, I think it's sort of a combination of having something, well, being able to do the work to start with, and then having a helping hand. Like, I knew an illustrator called John Winch, and I went to him for advice, and he suggested someone I could send work to. But then he went one step further and he actually sent it to her. He actually sent it himself to her, and that's how I got my first job. But I think publishers, I mean, I don't know exactly what they're looking for, but obviously you need to be able to draw and have a style that they see is marketable. I think it's very hard at the moment because it's such a small industry, and I don't think it's. I think children's books are doing all right, but publishing in general, publishing books, is very hard at the moment. I always felt that I loved drawing so much that I didn't really mind if I got published or not. I was just happy to be able to do it for myself, and I think that somehow that showed. And I think that's really good advice, to be honest, is just have passion for it and that'll show, and then work really hard. and stalk someone and get them to send your work in to a publisher. Oh, you'll be fine. Yeah.
Some more
Good luck.
questions? Here we go.
How old were you when you first wrote your published book?
I did my first book in 2002 or 3, so I was 26, 27. So, I was getting pretty old by that stage. Yeah. I've been doing this for 10 years now. I still feel like I'm just starting out. It's funny, isn't it? Yeah.
It's been forever, and it's
such a
exciting.
short time at the same time. And I'm nowhere near where I want to be. There's all these things I yet want to do.
So much to look forward to. Does the gentleman with the son have a question?
Have you ever found yourself being asked to take on an individual, a private commission, draw this for me, paint this for me for my private wall house collection?
Yeah, quite a lot actually.
And?
I generally say no because I just don't have any time. I'm sorry. Do you get that too?
I'm just interested.
Yeah, it's. I don't think. Yeah, I've booked myself up for a few years in advance, and the more things I put in like that, I just never get round to the work I have to do. And it would be really nice to do other things every so often. So I let myself do the big murals. But yeah, I'm pretty limited to the books I do. And I feel like once I've signed a contract and I've said yes, I can't really put that off. Yeah.
We might have one last question from the young man in the white shirt, if he can.
And the blue drink bottle.
Yes.
That's you.
That's you, mister. What was your first book, is the question?
My first book was a book called 2 Summers, which is about two different summers in Australia, a drought, a very dry summer and a very wet summer. And it's a nice book, and it's still around out there, and it's still quite relevant because we still have strange weather.
And John Heffernan is a
Heffernan
really wonderful writer.
Yeah, he is. And he actually wrote that. They were looking for a job for me to do, and he sort of wrote it, not specifically for me, but to give me a job. Yeah. So it was...
good man.
I was very, very lucky that I got to do that as my first book. Yeah.
Well, folks, on that note, we might wrap it up. I think we should make Freya feel awesome by giving her a huge round of applause and hope that she comes back to Melbourne soon. Thank you. Thank you, Freya.
Thank you very much, Leesa. You were wonderful.